Hi, and welcome to this episode of Bill and Kipp's Excellent Adventure. My name is Kipp McClurg, and this is
Bill Brunson.
we serve as pastors at Vestavia Hills United Methodist Church, and we get to serve together and get to learn a lot about the Bible together. And so thanks for joining us for this episode. So today, on our table, we have a mat.
A yoga mat.
It's a yoga mat. My wife took an exercise class. They had them buy mats. I rarely throw things away. I found it in the attic. Cost us nothing. Did not add to the budget whatsoever of special effects.
Well, and it's fairly obvious that neither of us do yoga.
Yeah, we have not been utilizing
The mat has not seen any use whatsoever.
No, it has not. But the story that we're going to talk about is a man who did utilize a mat.
Yes.
Probably more as we would have by laying on it rather than really exercising on it. So it's John chapter 5, and story of a man who is been laying next to the pool of Bethesda for years. In fact, I think, if my memory serves correctly, like 38 years.
Right.
Now you've been to here several times.
Yes.
So it's a fascinating picture, and I'm going to take the mat, put it out of the way, so make sure we can all see it. And so tell us a little bit about what we're looking at.
All right. Well, the pool of Bethesda the name of it comes from two words, Bethesda, Hesda, which means house of grace or house of mercy. And it's located near the ancient sheep gate into the city of Jerusalem, which, of course, sheep gate, that's where they brought the sheep. And it's currently where they've closed off gates and open gates. You now get to it by entering through the Lion's Gate that you're looking at when you look down from the Mount of Olives on the side of the old wall of the city. You'll see the Lion's Gate.
So did they bring the lions through there?
No.
Oh, just checking.
But this is it was built around a natural water supply. This is an underground aquifer. It had natural springs down there. They built these large reservoirs that would hold the water, and they ended up building 5 porticos around this. And it was believed that it had healing power.
Now, you wanted a lot of water because if you're in a siege situation, you want a water source that's inside the walls,
right,
that can't be tampered with, that you can live off of for a long time. So this would have had not so much, I want myself a nice little fountain out back,
right,
but this became really critical to life.
Oh, very practical to be able to have this much water.
Yeah.
And it's amazing now because it doesn't fill up as it used to, and you're able to hike down and around and go back into where the water source is, where the springs are, and there are more springs all down below, and that's what caused the people to believe it had healing power, was because occasionally the still water would suddenly start to move when the springs would come to life. You would suddenly have that moving. And the ancient Jewish belief was, in that moment when the water was moving, it moved not because there were springs underneath, but they believed that it moved because an angel flew down and waved its wings over the top of the water. And so the water started to ripple. And when the water moved, if you were the first person to touch the water, then you would be healed. That was their belief. And so that's why under the 5 porticos around the pool of Bethesda, the house of mercy, the house of grace, that's why people would bring the invalid members of their family or their community. They would bring them on their mats and they would lay them under the portico with the idea that when the water stirred, maybe their family member, maybe their loved one would be able to touch the water and be healed.
Because I would be a little afraid that my family would just shove me on in.
Well, yes, I would be too. I would be a little nervous when we would be go into the water.
Yeah.
But it ended up being a place where, some people estimate that there were hundreds of
Yeah.
people
Oh, I can see
that
why they
would
would
be
do that.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. So this man had uh, for 38 years, uh, that was his plan, and for 38 years it didn't work.
It didn't happen. For 38 years, in their belief system, for 38 years, the angel would swoop down, fan its wings, the water would ripple, and for 38 years, this guy missed it.
So he either didn't have people helping him or just was an unlucky guy.
Right.
So one day on a Sabbath, and that's a very important word here because it kind of colors what happens in the story. Jesus comes along and just looked at the guy. And what does
Right.
he say?
He looks at the man and he says, "Do you want to be made well?" Now, I've always loved that question. Do you want to be made well? Because I don't know if, you have to wonder if there's a part of Jesus asking that, having, sort of thought about it for a moment and realized, I think, had I been laying by this pool for 38 years, I could have wriggled enough to get close enough to that water.
I would have figured a plan out.
To at least in 38 years, I could have inchwormed my way enough.
Or come at midnight when there's somebody else there.
Yeah. To at least be able just to be sitting there with a finger in the water at all times, just in case of an angel appearance. And so you have to wonder when he's sort of established there with his mat near the pool, and Jesus walks up and asks the question, "Do you want to be made well?" Is Jesus looking at him and going, it's just right there.
Yeah. It's somewhat like someone who complains about their job for 38 years and somebody comes up and says, "Would you like a different job?"
Mm-hmm.
Because part of you say, "Well, yeah," but then part of it's, this is my life.
This is what I know to do.
This is all I've ever known.
Yeah. I mean, after 38 years, you imagine this guy's probably literally the old man of the pool of Bethesda.
Right.
I mean, probably everybody there knows who he is. He's been there forever. He's an institution, him and his mat.
And Jesus says, "Do you want to be healed?" and proceeds to heal him.
Yeah.
And so he takes up his mat. He begins walking, and the religious leaders, they don't appear to be very excited about this.
No.
And they're trying to figure out who healed him, and he doesn't know. The guy disappeared in the crowd. I'm not sure. And they're continuing to ask questions because obviously something happened. Somebody got healed. Somebody did work on the Sabbath, and you're not supposed to do work on the Sabbath, even if it's good.
Right.
It's not
you
don't need to do that. And so, who is this guy? And they're continuing to ask. And then Jesus finds the man, and it's interesting. He looks at him and he says, go and be healed, but don't sin, or something worse can come back on you. And there's always this sort of connection between spirituality and health and that kind of thing. And different parts of Scripture say different things, but there's always a sense that spiritual healing and physical healing with Jesus kind of went together.
Right.
And so
there's a connection.
There's a connection with that. And so he heals him. And it kind of reminds him of that. And so the religious leaders, they keep asking questions, and they finally figure out that it's Jesus. And they want to know, by what authority are you doing this? And get in this long, long conversation. So how is it that Jesus, eventually Jesus kind of finds a way to prove his authority? They're questioning the authority of Jesus. And so how is it that Jesus finally kind of comes back around?
Yeah, he takes it back to Scripture. And it's interesting because they want a witness. They want somebody that can prove that Jesus has the authority to do these things. And Jesus basically says, if you want to know who my witness is, you want to know who gives me this authority, well,
I got a good one.
I got a really good one. It's God.
My Father.
My Father is the one who gives me the authority to do
And
this.
He's given me a really good testimony.
Yes.
And that does not seem to go over very well.
That doesn't go over well at all with these
Yes.
people. You know, when you start, well, first off, anyone claiming that God is their Father, they deem it offensive and heretical. And he's doing this to justify the fact he's worked on the Sabbath, which is violating the law,
Which is heretical.
Which is heretical. I mean, and so Jesus, the way he argues it is it's amazing, because he argues it in such a way that they can't catch him on any one particular thing. And so they can't, because they don't really want to even say that he was the one that healed the man, because that gives that would be them acknowledging he has power.
Yeah,
it validates that he has power. So they don't want to say that he's the one that healed the man. And so they can't really get him on the fully working on the Sabbath thing. And they definitely don't want to get into this with him about where he's claiming to be the Son of God, and that God's going to give testimony to him. And then he starts talking about Moses. Then he, which when you're talking to religious leaders in the Jewish faith in this period of time, and you bring Moses in,
right,
you've taken the argument to a whole other level.
And Jesus brings Moses in not in a way that they like. He says, basically, if Moses were here, in reality, you're arguing against Moses. And Moses would be taking the opposite side with you. So, you can do that if you want to quote Moses, but no, he wouldn't be with you.
Yeah, you can quote Moses all you want, but Moses would be on my side. Moses would like me better. It would be the argument Jesus is making to support himself in this moment.
So this is the second chapter. We have the Samaritan woman, where Jesus really asks kind of the question, what's the great good here? And violates several things that are part of the ritual that a good Jewish person probably wouldn't do. And here again, Jesus says the Sabbath, I mean, what better thing to do than do something good on the Sabbath?
Yeah.
And so you start seeing Jesus realizing and kind of reminding us that religion can be taken in certain directions, where our religion, instead of helping the world, instead of being bringing healing to the world, we instead bring almost this judgmental.
The rigidity is too harsh, and just like the living water that he offers the woman at the well. Here again, we have living water moving water,
spring fed.
Yeah, and in this moment, he's violating all the laws, going to Samaria and dealing with the woman, and in this case, he's violating Sabbath law. But Sabbath, the reason for Sabbath law, Sabbath was supposed to connect you to God, and Sabbath was supposed to be life-giving. The Sabbath was a life-giving day for these people, and what he does on the Sabbath is he gives back life to a man who has been laying on a mat next to a pool for 38 years without the ability to get in and to get healed. And now he gives him life, so that whatever the rest of his life may look like, which we don't know how much longer he had, but it could actually be a quality of life, or at least a life lived with his family, lived in community, rather than laying underneath a portico at a pool with all the other invalids.
Well, and it's an interesting thing also for that man, because in his mind, the only way he would ever be made whole, he had a plan. And Jesus came to him with a different plan.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most difficult things spiritually for us is we often have in our mind how God's going to work things out.
Right.
And then suddenly God comes from a totally different direction. And that's a moment of faith where you go, well, it's not the plan that I was thinking of, but maybe God's at work.
Yeah. Because sometimes we go to God even in prayer and we ask God to help us with something, and then it's like we hold both halves of the conversation.
Right, yeah.
In that we want you to help us with this, and it'd be great if you'd help us in this way.
Right. Here's the plan.
Here's a point
Just sign off right here.
A through G, and here's all the things we need you to do in this order, in this order, and this is what we're going to be looking for. And instead of doing point A, God does point 7.
Orange.
So, and we're like, and we don't recognize what God is doing because we're still stuck on waiting on A. And what I do like about the man is when Jesus says, "Do you want to be made well?" He doesn't say, "Sure, if you'll sit here with me,
Yep, just push me
and
in.
you'll sit here with me and watch the water for me, then you can help get me down in there when the time comes." He actually understands that Jesus is offering him a whole nother way, and he's willing to follow that other way. I think that's a lesson we probably all need to learn.
I think so.